Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the show.
Just tell them when to stop, too.
Oh, quiet.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And hello, everybody. You are on the Full Spectrum Project here on WBHM-DB. And I am Brian Clune, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by...
Pete Haviland down here in sunny Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I'm in California. So as we've said before, I'm in the proper time zone, and I have beautiful weather. Well, you know, I'm still here in California. I might not be for much longer. Thank God for that.
Yeah, well, they're getting ready to finally kick you out? They finally found you?
Well, there is that. So I do have to run. I think it was the FBI. It could have been NSA. I'm not really sure. One of them has actually, been hovering in black helicopters over my house. So it's one or the other.
That's me.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I was throwing eggs at you, remember?
You did notice that Wyatt was standing out on the roof of the house with his little pea shooter trying to shoot you down, right?
Yeah, but it only goes about 3 inches drop, so he's not very good at it.
Yeah, he gets kind of weirded out when you talk about his impotence like that, but we keep it quiet.
And we start.
But no, the reason I might not be in California much longer is, and I thought this was rather appropriate considering I mainly write ghost books, is my last day of work will be October 30th, which means my first day of retirement is Halloween. So, hey, you know what? I thought that was really appropriate, especially, being a paranormal investigator who writes about ghosts. I just thought that, that was the perfect day to retire. And the funny thing is I actually wasn't even, it wasn't me who put those dates in. It was actually the CalPERS. So I just thought it was kind of cool. All right. So anyway, tonight we are joined by Reverend, I believe I have that right, Teal Gray. And we're here to talk about a couple of her books. And I think this is going to be a really fascinating show. So welcome to the show, Teal. We are real happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here with you guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You're in trouble, right, Teal?
I do. I just, I'm hanging on the edge of my seat, and I just going to go with it.
Oh,
I'm kind of enjoying the thrill.
Sarcasm already. Oh, great.
I promise.
Right in.
I promise I will try and keep Pete in check. I know that's not an easy thing to do, but I promise I will try and, keep him on track and on focus. So,
we could just, since it probably won't happen, let's just let it go. Let's just free fly here. Let's see what happens.
Sometimes that's the best way, especially with Pete.
And by the way, Teal, you know that Brian is going to be coming down to Texas for Jody's little shindig in Jefferson, Texas. So
heard that.
I am.
Heard that. I can't wait to meet you in person. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You're
safe now, right? You're going to have to have bail money.
Oh man. Okay, we'll come ready to roll just in case things go south.
Well, I'm actually going to be bringing quite a bit of extra bail money.
Okay.
My wife will be coming with me. We're actually planning on coming out on a nice long road trip. It'll be the first trip in my retirement. So we're just going to enjoy. We're going to kind of, I wouldn't say rush to get out to Jefferson, but once the Paracon is over and we leave Jefferson, we are just going to take our sweet time and enjoy ourselves. And
listen, you have some great sights to see. There's some really wonderful places. Caddo Lake. I'll give you the hookup with some people you guys need to meet and go out on some boat tours and stuff. After the show, I'll let you know.
Sounds good to me. Definitely. And one of the things that
get home, so I might be bringing my Great Dane. I'm not sure yet.
Oh, good.
All right. So I kind of need to keep Wyatt in check then.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because
he will become a chew toy.
Yes, Zeus doesn't like him. So you can let Teal know who Wyatt is.
Oh, Wandering Wyatt, who by the way has his own Facebook page, Wandering Wyatt's Wanderlust, is a cursed bobblehead, and he is he is the weirdest. He's like this funky little cowboy, and he's got this little tiny gun that he points at everybody, and giant feet, and he's got a little feather in his cap.
Thank God he doesn't have any bullets in the gun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. Hence his impotency. But
that's two, Clune. That's two.
Pete actually sent me the rest of his family.
I was wondering when I was going to come out.
And I opened this box of little gnomes, and the first thing I see are two of them that have these little phallus-looking things coming out of their. And I finally looked again about 3 weeks later. I'm like, oh, thank God it's their feet.
See, it's really fun when you have friends like that you think you need to put the box away for a bit of time before you open it back up again. That means that's the right kind of people to be hanging out with. You're going to have good stories there.
Yeah, and it can actually be kind of scary, but
I think one's on a toilet and one's flipping the bird, and one's moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
boy.
yeah,
you guys.
Those two with the one crossed leg just was like not right under any circumstances.
Now, why is it cursed?
We're not really sure. When I actually picked him up from a friend of mine who owns this little haunted ghost town up in an area called Kernville, and he told me it was cursed, and naturally, I mean, I didn't believe it. My wife didn't believe it.
I'll be right over.
Well, we were actually up there helping him out with not a paracon, but he does these lantern light ghost tours at night, and I go up there and kind of help lead them and things like that. And I had asked him if he had some sort of weird little anything that I could use on a desk when I was filming this little paranormal talking head show for the local city cable. And he brings this little bobblehead out, and he said, well, I don't know if I want to give him to you because he's cursed. And I was looking at this thing going, oh, this would be perfect. So I finally convinced him to do it. And as we're driving out, my wife keeps looking at this doll, this bobblehead, and she keeps telling me, you know what, put this thing away. This thing is creeping me out. Put this thing away. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do with it? And she finally says, well, just put it on the floor by your feet. So as soon as I do that, her seatbelt tightens. And everybody else in the car just starts laughing. We're thinking, this is a coincidence. And it's starting to tighten a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's getting now to the point where it's getting really tight. And finally, she kind of leans back and she goes, all right, put him back. So I put him back. As soon as I put him back, the seatbelt loosened.
Well, there you go. I mean, it truly is a thing. I know some people have wonderment about this stuff, but anything can attach to anything. That could be a one sort of cursed by one entity that's in it, or it could be a whole host of fun that you have riding along with you there. Yeah,
but it's gotten to the point where Wyatt has become my closest travel companion, which is really kind of weird. He like goes everywhere with me, which is why I started his own Facebook page a while back. And he's actually a little upset with me because I haven't taken him anywhere in a while and taken pictures of him. So I think I'm going to have to do that before he starts getting even with me, which he is. Yeah, he's known to do that. All right. So
didn't he just drink all your beer in your fridge, or was that you again?
No, he doesn't really like beer, but he always goes after my rum. So and okay. He's an obnoxious drunk. Oh wait, no, that's me. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that there might be a little bit of a tie here with your drinking and you're blaming Wyatt here, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Well, actually, I like to blame my wife.
It's easier to say the devil made me do it when you don't want to, say it.
That's
true. You know what? Where have I heard that phrase before? I'll have to think about this.
I said it to Teal not too long ago.
Yeah, I can imagine.
This is true.
All right, so Teal, that's enough about me and Wyatt and Pete's propensity. We won't go there. Anyway, so
that's three Clune, new batter.
New batter. Would that be beer batter or?
At this point, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter about the batter.
So I wanted to ask you, Teal. You're a reverend, that's correct?
Yes, and I know that's very confusing for people since I'm also a psychic medium, and they just can't seem to reconcile that. And I have people that ask me, that know me as a reverend, and then they'll see, me at a book signing or something with my books and everything. They're like, oh, when did you change sides?
Oh, God. Yeah.
I'm like, oh boy, I didn't actually, or I'll write something, which I'm I'm really a citizen of the world. So I am a Christian. I believe in God. However, I love to search out all the world religions, all the ancient texts, everything. I'm just a curious cat like that. And, the truth is, which people don't want to hear, is that even if you go to something which they would consider, anti-Christian or pagan or whatever, well, I'm sorry to tell them, but that if you go to the source, the beginning, it's all wrapped up together. And, Christianity has borrowed from all these things, in trying to conquer people throughout time. And, it's not so simple to have a little box that they want people to jump in. And so I don't fit in that box, and that makes some people uncomfortable. But, I've had my whole life, I've never known anything different than to be, to be around spirits, have spirits around me, have these interactions. And I don't hide it, which I think, some people that are maybe, religious. I mean, I wasn't ordained until 2011. So this is not something like I've been a minister all my life. But and it actually was something that was brought up to me because I had done so many years of study into ancient texts and different things like this and religions. Somebody said, hey, you should just go to seminary because you've got so many years of this. You should really at least have a degree, get a degree in it. So I have my doctorate, and I have a doctorate in naturology. I'm a drugless practitioner, all sorts of things. But, to me, it is something that is now coming together again, where science, religion, magic, the essence of things, the energy of things used to be one power, one thought, and then was separated out, which I think more for control than anything else. But now people are coming back. They're educating themselves out of these little boxes that they want you to sit in and realizing, wait a minute, the more you know, the more you realize this is something that has been separated, but now is coming together again and has sort of a resurgence of really coming to your own true higher self and spirituality, in knowledge, in what is really magical. I mean, it really is. And, the paranormal it's not abnormal. It's part of it. And the more you search into the ancient text, and even into the Bible, if you really search it out before it was sanitized so much, it's all there, I mean, it's not uncommon, even in the Bible. Pick up any kind, new version, anything, and it will, there, Jesus is in the boat with them and says, "Here, touch me. You'll see I'm flesh. I'm a man. I'm not a ghost." And the reason people are like, why did he say that? Because what you don't realize is that at that time, you have to search what's going on at that time. There are part spirits, things like this, energies of things, and all of the ceremonies and the magical things. That was very much part of life. It wasn't something that was something off to the side, something that was automatically considered evil or bad. It wasn't like that. And I think we're now waking up to realizing that, it's sure there's evil, of course there is, but there's a lot of it that just is.
Well, how do you see it coming back together? I mean, what have you seen that shows you that?
Well, actually, the mass exodus from churches. If you go and visit churches, this is pre-COVID, okay? Just so many. They are losing churches, big churches that had, let's say, so many people that they would have 6 services a day. I mean, on Sunday. And then they were down to 2, and they couldn't even fill 2 up 2 years ago. And the reason being, people have gotten to where they're like, no, I mean, you're not going to tell me who I can love or who is okay to be in my family or what I can think, or if I say I saw a ghost, I'm kicked out, or, I mean, so many things. They're like, I'm curious about UFOs. Well, no, you got to go. I mean, people are really they're just not doing that anymore. And they're coming into a time when, they went to God, and many of them still love God, and they still love the Bible. They still love the principles that they hold dear, but they don't want somebody in the pulpit or, on a board of directors telling them how to live their life to the detail. That just doesn't fit. And, I certainly understand that. But I've been to many different churches, tabernacles, you name it. And I love all of them. There's something wonderful in all of them. But I'm also not going to say, oh, yeah, no, all that, all those ghosts, all these things, yeah, that's bad. It's not. I mean, it's just not. And I did struggle with it my whole life, back and forth, like, is it bad, or is this terrible that I can see these things, or that I know these things, or should I read cards? Should I tell people's future? Should I not do that? And it's been back and forth, and I finally realized, God gives everybody gifts. He gives everybody different gifts, different levels of the same gifts, sometimes. And I don't think it's bad. I've just embraced my gifts because they didn't go away anyway. So if it wasn't something that I should be doing, it wouldn't stay, and it wouldn't manifest more fully, So I've just made peace with that, and so I just embrace it all. Like, I embrace all religions, and I also embrace everything with the paranormal. So I'm a little bit of a jumbled mess, I suppose.
How did you find that peace within you? How did you come about that?
It really actually came out of just having, denied, like, well, I just won't do it. I'll just turn it off. I'll just shut it out. And it just, like, the waiting room got bigger, so to speak. So they didn't go, the spirits didn't go away. And the more, like, I prayed about it, like, if this is not something I should give up, then let me know this clearly. And, through just years of being around different spirits and different entities, you learn to discern what is good, what is bad. And I'm open about the fact, I've had several interactions, with dark entities, and very helpful ones, actually. And so I kind of walk right down the middle, and I just am comfortable with that now. And I just, I just learn from everything.
Pete, we need to take a break for station identification, and when we come back, we'll continue with Teal Gray. You're listening to the Full Spectrum Project. We'll see you on the other side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
And you are back with the Full Spectrum Project on WBHM-DB, Birmingham, Alabama. And we have been talking with Teal Gray. And Teal, I wanted to, you have a couple books coming out this month. Is that correct? One, I believe,
That's right.
on the 3rd, and then the other one on the 23rd. And
Yeah.
I was looking at...
See, we do our homework.
That's you sure did.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Now, don't dig too much deeper because, I may have some things I want to keep hidden. But
That's
the books
later.
we can talk about.
That's later. The
Yeah,
sacrifices and all that stuff is later. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
great.
exactly. Oh, and you know what? If you need to make a human sacrifice, Pete already said that he would volunteer. So
No, I
we
volunteered
have
Wyatt.
that.
I
There
volunteered
you
Wyatt.
go.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
So
Wyatt's going to officiate, right? So
Wyatt will
that.
definitely officiate, yes. And you know what? He'll bring his entire family.
Fantastic. Boy, Jefferson's going to be really interesting this year.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
is.
you once you have Nome, you never go back. So
it must be. But
That's
yes,
another
I
strike
have,
there, Clint.
I have The Devil Made Me Do It, coming out on the 23rd, and before that is going to be Forget Me Not, Memento Mori, A Worldview. And again, it's a worldview on how we care for, bury our dead, some ceremonies, sort of a whole thing about Memento Mori. And actually, I held the release of that just out of sort of respect for what's been going on in the world. It was going to come out, in April. And, of course, with the pandemic, I thought it was just in poor taste. I just thought, it's just too much right now. But people are so curious about it. I was going to hold it a little longer, but people are so curious now that it's been a little time. It's still horrible. I mean, we've gone over 1 million deaths in this. But at the same time, it has brought to the forefront so many people who want to, how can I remember them? How can I do something, with maybe a lock of their hair or maybe their clothing? What can we do, as remembrance of them? And it's bringing back questions of things, certainly at the height of the Victorian era, that was, its greatest time. But it's been going on throughout history, and it heightens of course, anything big, a plague, anything like that, and its enormity brings it to the forefront. But it's just a book about remembering your loved one, different ways that you can, and then there's also different ways that now, where we are today in the present, you can also handle your own burial very differently. You can be put in this little egg-shaped pod that's planted underneath a sapling. You can become a tree. You can become a diamond. You can be shot into space.
And that's going to bring a new meaning to the word haunted forest.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. There's a lot of things like who gets mom? Like we can't sell the house till we move the tree. There's a lot to it, but there's ways that you can do it now. But I've actually been toying with the idea of, because I'm also an artist, of bringing back sort of the old lessons in how to braid the hair and make certain art pieces and things. So that may be something that I start up, later in the year, next year, and bring that out, because so many people are curious about it, and it's quite an art form. If you look at some of the pieces, the hair is not, certainly have many pieces where the hair is just a lock of hair that's kept either, maybe in a frame or a piece of jewelry, but there are elaborate, even 3D weavings of hair. Wow. And made into earrings to, bracelets, watch fobs, you name it. It just amazing stuff. Rings. The rings are something that really amazed me because the braids are so tiny, and there's so many that create, the whole ring is made out of hair, and it's sturdy. They last. It's beautiful stuff. And I one time was one of those people who was like, oh, come on now. That's got to be a bad idea to collect this. And then the more I learned about it, I now have over 100 pieces of different jewelry pieces, different, art pieces, and then also the subgenre, which is dance of death art. I have a lot of those pieces, grave rubbings from all over the world. So
what is a dance of death art?
It's fascinating. It is something that came about, and it's a subgenre because it's so large. It's actually, a thing, its own sort of category. And so you will see, and you may have seen some pictures where you'll have a skeleton dancing, or you may have a skeleton in a robe, kind of dancing around a prince. And then you'll have a pauper, a child, an old man, and he's taking them to their death. And it was something that is a visual aspect that would show death comes for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. He's going to knock on your door. Doesn't matter if you're young or old. There's nothing. It's the untouchable. You can't save yourself from it. And so, people really would have these pieces, and they would perform plays. They would write music about it, and it was really so much a part of life throughout time. Like let's just pick the Victorian time for just a description. More than half of the children in Victorian England would not have made it to their 5th birthday. And, so death, just even the children, and then the workers the males, if you made it past 25, you were doing fantastic. And if you go into the slums, which I have another book coming out later about the Victorian slums, it's even worse. So, you have this death of all ages and just the, just dredge of life, just trying to make it through with enough money to have shelter or food. And you have to think about in those times, we don't think about it, how hard it was to make the money. But, if you were in the poor section of life, then you would even have, if you couldn't afford a bed to sleep in, you couldn't afford what they called the day coffin, like a night, it looks like little coffins, but they had hay in them, and you would rent that space to lay down in, but you couldn't afford that. So they would tie a rope on you, and you would literally, kind of just lean against the wall and have a rope to keep you from falling. You had to pay for that. So, so they had these insurance policies that like a penny for your child, they'd put more in money for something else because even in their poverty, they wanted to have a proper burial because that was something that was at the forefront of your mind. And I think that death sometimes in that situation, sometimes in a current situation now, it's so much in the forefront that it becomes a fabric of your life. And that is just something that is with us. And now our attention's on it again. And we have sanitized ourselves through time to where it's not so much that somebody dies in a home and then they're taken care of, cleaned there, the wake is there, and then you take them, bury them. We sometimes never see the person from the time they've gone, let's say, to the hospital or to a nursing home or something, they pass, then you don't see them again until if you have an open casket or if you're, at the funeral. So it's distanced, but more and more people are going for what we call green burials, where maybe they don't want to be embalmed. Maybe you want to have what is literally a cardboard coffin, but some people are going for those, not just cost, but because they can have the whole family paint on them, draw on them, the kids can be part of it, and it just brings it all back, kind of taking care of our people, just taking care of our loved ones. And so that's about that. And then the devil made me do it. Well, we can just imagine what that one's about, right?
Yeah. You were just talking about how people are going green as far as their funerals and stuff. I had actually told my wife quite a few years ago, I'm Irish, all right, and I found out I'm very Irish. And I had always told my wife that when I die, I want her to have a full Irish wake, and I actually wanted to be embalmed, set into a corner somewhere during the wake, and just stick a drink in my hand and just let people come up and talk to my corpse. I mean, now to
that
me,
is Irish.
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, that would be the perfect Irish wake.
Dude, I do that every Thursday.
Well, there is that, but I just always thought that would be an interesting thing, and I actually even told the guys at work. I said, if I die before I retire, prop me up so they don't dock me for hours. But we won't even go there. You had said something. You were talking about the Victorian era, and I was wondering, the Victorians seem to have this obsession with spirituality, and
they did.
I believe that was about the time when they started taking photographs of the deceased and or drawings and things like that, where they would dress them as if they were still alive. And I was wondering, where did that actually come from?
Well, you're exactly spot on. It, in fact, started out, cameras as they came about and became something that middle class, even sometimes poorer people could pool money, whatever, and they could have a photograph taken. It was a big deal. And I understand people of these days think, what are you talking about? Because everything is so easily, photographed or with your phone. But you have to think, back in the day, that was not the case. So photography, and certainly death photography, was a new thing. It was a brand new thing then, and it was costly. But it meant everything that somebody would have the last image of their loved one. And in that idea, it almost immediately was formed by people who were like, gosh, well, instead of them just laying in state, or dead, can we do something to where we can be with them? Or certainly they would hold the baby. But then they thought, well, if you can hold the baby and look like we're all together having a family photo, why can't we prop up Aunt Margie and put her eyes open and, or the kids, whatever. And they did that. And they would seat them either if they, were alone, or if it was, a family situation, or sometimes they would just have the other children be with them. It just depended on the person's preference. But you really have to look, and sometimes it's very, miscategorized, where people think this is a death photo or that it's not, or mostly people think, oh, this is just a family photo. It's not. One of the people there is dead. But you have to look really closely and to check that. But it certainly was a thing. Certainly, definitely.
Well, I don't know whether you were aware of it, but that's actually making a comeback. I've actually recently seen photographs of people who are deceased. The one that keeps coming to mind, and my wife actually mentioned it earlier today, was there's a motorcycle racer who had passed away, and they actually posed him on a motorcycle and took a series of pictures. And so it's almost like death photos are now starting to make a comeback, which
it really is cycling through again. And I think that's fascinating. I mean, really, some people will be turned off by it. But then when you think about it, the people that are doing that, they're not doing it as something, flighty or to make light of. They love that person. They love them. And some people are great fans, or they idolize somebody. So they're doing it out of what they did before, absolute love and devotion. And so he loved, being on that motorcycle, right? And so what better way to remember him, or to have him go out in a happy way, as to be photographed on that bike. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do it. They should have, because you certainly can. They could have had him buried with the bike.
Because I've heard people being buried in their cars.
Absolutely. There's people there's a guy who was buried in his bed. He wanted to be buried in his bed. He wanted to be buried in his boxer shorts and his tank top, and he wanted to just be comfortable. He's like, if I'm dead, I live this way, and I want to go out this way. And certainly you pay a little more because you're digging a bigger hole, but you can have anything you want to happen. And it's definitely, you're spot on that it's making a resurgence in every way. And I mean, that's certainly a big show right there, to do that. And because people, again, they're coming into this knowledge of everything is okay. Like, you can do whatever you want, and you can believe whatever you want, and you can believe a mix of whatever you want. truthfully, who's going to tell you you can't? Nobody, right? Nobody. And so people are loving that personal thing.
Here's the scary thing, Pete. Here's the scary thing. You know how my mind works. If I can do anything I want once I'm deceased,
yeah, you're gonna be
I'm having ideas.
Yeah. Hey, Teal, isn't there a tribe somewhere that will dig up their ancestors and dress them up and take them into their home to either share a meal or take them someplace? And they do that almost constantly through the year, don't they?
They do. That is, and there's also varying religions and different things that will do that, or they will even have bones. Like sometimes they can't get the whole person, or there's situations, but they'll have bones, or they'll have family members have different pieces of them. All of these things are true. Also, when you think of food, like funeral foods, there is, some people don't believe this. Now, there are cookies that are made just with remembrance, like a bakery does it. It's all proper and fine and good now. Right. But back in the day, there are still people who do this. I'm sorry to say, so be careful of what cookies you eat at a funeral. But they would put the dough. Yeah, they would put the dough because they wanted the essence of the deceased to be ingested in them so that they were always together. And so they would roll the dough, let's say like on the chest of the deceased or something.
So you're eating grandma?
So that you possibly could be a little bit of her DNA, and they would put it in the cookies and bake it, and they felt like that's just fine. And that was a thing. It's too far for me. That's too far for me. But I will say, going back, you were talking about the Victorians really embracing this spiritualism. They really did. I mean, they had what, they called parlor games, if you will. But that was really what they did was as soon as they would, have dinner, oh, hey, kids were involved too. It wasn't a separate thing. And it wasn't a bad thing. They would go into the parlor, get out, they'd either have a seance or maybe, they'd have a board or they'd do table tipping or whatever. They were big into communicating with the spirits. And to them, the people were all around, the ancestors were all around, and they wanted to keep that communication. So it was one of the things that started out. Now, the cemeteries now, they're open air, all that kind of thing. But it started out almost as like, hey, we'll take the family picnic. And they did. They took food out there, and families would go and sit by the graves, and they would have, lunch, let's say, or whatever, breakfast. They do whatever they want, some dinner, didn't matter. And it was just that they were never without contact of the ones they loved. And so after they visited them at the grave, well, they would come home after dinner like, hey, well, let's see who's around, who wants to talk to us. And it was what they did. People are shocked by that, but it's the absolute truth. Absolute truth.
Well, kids used to play in the graveyards a lot too.
Yeah,
way back.
Because it wasn't scary, spooky. It was where everybody that used to live in your house is now living. So it was a different mindset. And in fact, Europe has a very different mindset than we do about it. Especially, you talk about the Irish. When somebody will ask them like, oh gosh, your house is haunted, and they look at them and they were like, let's say it's an old manor house or something. And they're like, well, of course it is. Where did you think they would go? This is their house. I mean, they're just appalled at the thought that you're wanting to banish them or surprised that they're there. Like, of course they're there. It's just a part of life with them. It's a little different. And I think that we are coming into that more and going, well, yeah, you know what? Yeah, maybe I want to get a message and see what they have to say to me. And it's sort of a way for people, even if it's not something they keep going, they do, want to contact their loved one at least once sometimes just to have that finality or to think they're okay. I hear all the time, I just want to know they're okay. And so when they get a message or something that I couldn't possibly know, then they feel like, oh, okay, good. Yeah, that was our clue. That's what I needed to know. They're at peace about it. And while you're never going to stop loving them, missing them, they just feel like, okay, that's a little message for them that whether it's true or not, whether you can never prove anything, but for them, it gives them comfort and makes them think, okay, there is something after death. So it comforts them for the person and also themselves in the future, because that knock's going to come at their door too. And everybody wants to know, is there something on the other side? And you hope that there is.
Yeah. Well, we need to take another station identification break, but we will continue speaking with Teal Gray when we come back. And you're listening to the Full Spectrum Project, and we'll see you on the other side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
And you are back with the Full Spectrum Project on WBHM-DB. And if you want to join in, please go to that website and join in the chat room. And if you have any questions for our guest, you can call in to area code 205-533-7982, and we will be happy to take your questions. So we have been talking to Teal Gray, and we've basically been talking about her book, Forget Me Not, Memento Mori. And this has got some really interesting things in it. I mean, I'm actually going to have to get this book. As I was reading through the table of contents, I was just thinking, oh, I need to learn that. Oh, that's, so I mean, I literally was just fascinated with what is in this book.
Brian, it's already on its way because I sent it to you.
Oh, and see, here I was making fun of you. Well, that doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm not comfortable if you're not making fun of me. So that's just life.
Oh, it's on now.
Uh-huh.
It's on.
I know. I figured.
So one of the things that I was trying to figure out, and I couldn't, you may not want to go into it, but you mentioned
she'll go into it.
Well, it depends. I don't know how much she wants to let out. I don't know how much she wants to let out on the book.
No, but I'm an open book.
I know.
Well,
I'm just messing with you.
Then we'll open your book.
All right.
So it was something called, and I don't know if I'm going to be pronouncing this correctly, Vanitas.
Yeah. Vanitas.
Yeah.
So,
Vanitas.
But some people call it that way. It really it depends. So what that is, again, it's art. But it sometimes went outside the art, and people would literally have real human skulls on their desk or on a table, something that they saw all the time. But a vanitas was really, it's a vanity, okay? So it's what it's telling you. It's challenging the ego. And so these paintings, they're very typical. If you look it up, you'll see, and you've probably seen them and not even realize, oh, that's what that was. You'll see it's a clock many times. A candle is burning low. They'll almost always have a human skull. They'll have flowers that are wilting, petals falling off, all these sort of things. And it's to make you think and have a little panic, yes, that time is ticking. Do you realize? And I do always say, I have always said, time is your greatest gift, and the thing that you have no idea what quantity of it you have. So this is not a dress rehearsal. Don't spend a lot of time on, it's a shame that it takes us to the later years sometimes to figure out that, oh my gosh, live the life you want to live, because living anything else for anybody else, you may have wasted all your time. So be true to yourself and get on with it. And that's really what that is about. All of these memento mori things were to make you remember that, time is short. You too will die. And, that in fact is the memento mori back in the Roman days. You guys probably have heard this, that even victorious, the generals, they would be victorious, and then they would have these huge, town like parades. They'd go through the people, and everybody would chant and victory and all this stuff. But they would have a servant behind them, or a boy, they all had their boys, their pages, their servants, and they would be yelling at the general so he could hear them in his ear, memento mori, remember, you too will die. And to help to calm that great ego that is being boosted, they wanted to have that chant remembered. And it was very much a part of their life. And in fact, more and more people now, there's even clocks, you see that in the old squares. They would have the clock, the town square, where the skeletal figure would be the one that would be clanging the clock on the hour. And that's to remind you, death is coming. Don't waste time, that kind of thing. And people, it was such a part of their life that it became the background fabric of their life. It just was part of it. And I think that we had forgotten that and been very sanitized. And I think now it is something that is in the forefront of everybody's mind. And we really want to make the most of whatever time we have, and also honor those we've lost. And again, with what you said about the person having the pictures with their motorcycle, I mean, that's exactly right. And we used to have very specific tombstones and things that were made. Obadiah Wheeler is my ninth great-grandfather, and he was one of the greatest carvers, considered the greatest carver in the Connecticut, that coast in the 1700s, and he was a real innovator for those. But now, you can have pictures of anything. You can have things encased in your tombstone. You can just have anything you want, very personalized. So we're at a time when you can really express yourself, and you can walk through a cemetery now and you will recognize, oh gosh, that person was an artist, or that person, oh, look at that. They were a great cowboy. And there's, there's cemeteries for the circus folk, and you'll see, these beautiful tombstones to whatever was their thing. Were they a tight wire artist or worked with elephants? And so, it's really just to remember people in the best way that they live life, a true representation.
A few years back, I went to Tennessee with my partner, and we went to Tullahoma, which I wouldn't recommend for anybody, but there is a cemetery.
Oh, that's harsh. Okay.
Well, Tullahoma is one of those.
You just alienated our one only fan.
Well, no, because maybe our one and only fan in Tullahoma, but are
you sure you're not? You're going to now rename it Tullahoma or something?
Actually, you might actually be fairly close to the truth with that one. It's really a kind of this out there place, and it's weird because I may actually end up moving to Tennessee. Plus, I have relatives.
They're waiting for you now.
So yeah, I was going to say that they'll be waiting out there with pitchforks and baseball bats. But
what happened to Houston, man?
We haven't decided yet, Pete.
You just said Tennessee.
I said we might. But here's the thing:
we're gonna have problems in November.
Terry's mother used to live in Houston, mm-hmm. And so when we went out there, we basically it was in October, so not even the hot months, and we basically had to go from the air-conditioned house to the air-conditioned car to the air-conditioned place we were going to, because it was like 195 out.
Sure was.
So, I thought I was still in Death Valley. It's like, oh my God, what's going on here?
Oh, My gosh, I've been in Death Valley. It is really crazy. It is so hot in Death Valley. I don't know if you guys have actually been there, but a jackrabbit, the ones with the big tall ears, literally had deflated and melted onto a rock. And I was like, oh man, where am I?
Well, if they're going to name something death, I would really be seriously not going there anyway.
Well, I'm a castle hunter, so that's my thing. One of my things is a sacred site traveler, and I hunt castles. And Scotty's Castle is out in the middle of.
Yep.
Yes, but you know what? You start to wonder: is there really going to be a Scotty's Castle? And then finally, when you think you're going to die with the rabbit, you see just the tip of a castle, and you're like, "Oh, thank God!" But then it's quite a ways till you get there. So yeah, it's you got to really want that one.
What time of year did you go?
At least you made it there.
I went in August.
Oh my Lord, you're nuts.
Yeah. And I drove from Vegas. I went to Vegas, and I was with my younger daughter, well, grown, and she's like, "Oh, let's rent a car and let's go here, let's go there." We put like 700 miles in that car in a weekend. It was crazy. And we went through California, went to Death Valley. She's like, "While we're here, don't you want to see Scotty's Castle?" Sure. I mean, had I known, but yeah, it's quite a drive. Quite a drive.
Did you happen to get to the Amargosa Opera House and hotel out there?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that's got a fairly haunted history, and unfortunately, thanks to I'm not going to say the team's name, but they pretty much screwed it up to the point where no one can actually go and investigate there anymore. That's one of the reasons why I never.
Shame.
Yeah, I'm not one that supports teams going out and basically taking over a location and then charging people to come in, because generally speaking, they want to try and hype things up, and they were actually caught faking noises, and they apparently weren't real good at it either. And so the corporation just finally said, "Okay, no more."
And that's a shame though, because there are places that are absolutely beautiful, just national treasures, and worldwide treasures. And it would be great, if you could still get in some of those, or you have to really have the credentials and tell them, really, I'm not going to do anything, let me in. But it's made it hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, it really has. So what I was saying about going to Tullahoma, back then I really wasn't into thinking that cemeteries were haunted. That sort of changed after going to one particular cemetery here in California. But Bob wanted to go and kind of check it out. And so we were walking through, and the cemetery was from pre-Civil War. And they'd had burials from pre-Civil War all the way through to modern times. And I was absolutely amazed at the artwork of a lot of the tombstones. I mean, I couldn't even look at them as being grave markers as much as I looked at them as being works of art. And it really surprised me how people can get, just these beautiful pieces for their, I guess, eternal rest, however you want to call it. And I actually started snapping pictures, and I haven't stopped even to this day. When I go through cemeteries, I actually will look for the artwork rather than, a lot of people I go with are looking for ghosts.
Oh yeah, the architecture is phenomenal in some places.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes, and the statuary. I mean, some of those carvers, and it really is in some time and fashion, depending on the cemetery. It's like a little stroll through a museum of these beautiful
they're show places.
And beautiful. Yeah. And in Europe, it gets really great because they're so old. Some of them, they go back so far, and it's very elaborate statuary and everything. It is beautiful. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I had never really thought about that until just now when you mentioned it. That would actually be kind of an interesting thing to do. And I imagine you have been, a sacred site traveler.
I've got so many pictures, and those books will come. It's just like, there comes a time you just have to pick, like, which kid you're going to, put out there in the world. I mean, you got to stop somewhere. But, yeah, I have pictures from cemeteries all over the world. So, and some of those pictures, some of those photos will be in the Memento Mori book, just to go ahead and get some of those out there. And especially some of the places I've visited in Europe that have just amazing Memento Mori specific tombs, where you got the skull, the crossbones, different things like that. And, it really is something to see, really something. And then you have some that are even encased in glass. As you got more, maybe 1800s, that you'll have not very many, because certainly they don't last, but you have, what they call wolf stones, which are big slab stones to put over the graves, so nothing, let's think about it. Wolf stones like to keep the wolves out, keep the animals out. And then, of course, there's elaborate contraptions that were made to keep people from grave robbing. There was also bells that were installed in case you got buried alive. And certainly, and unfortunately, that happened quite frequently in certain time periods, because they didn't understand some of the symptoms, that you would seem like you're dead, but you were just in a coma. And when they've excavated some of these things, or some of the coffins have been found, they've seen, deep scratch marks in the lid, and it makes oh God, they did not, they weren't dead. They were dead.
So Teal, we're going to have to take a news break.
Okay.
And Pete, would you like to introduce our? Oh, and Teal, just as you, since we do tend to kibitz during the news, feel free, if you have comments, to kind of jump in and give Angie a hard time. We always do. So, Pete, would you like to introduce our?
Me.
Oh,
ladies and gentlemen.
Hold on a minute, Pete.
We are okay.
Holding.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Introduce our Weird World News, please.
Yes. Me, you. Ladies and gentlemen, with the Weird World News, Angie Mo.
And there's one strike for Pete.
Good evening, everybody. First, I would like to give a full spectrum holler, and yes, I'm from Texas, so I'm hollering, to Sherry for being excited about this segment. Yes, Sherry, someone showed me what you said in chat last week, and it made me all happy and warm, fuzzy inside. And it is always wonderful to hear from our listeners. So join in the chat room while we're live, or connect with us on Facebook at any time.
Angie is very happy she has a fan. Pete and I don't, but she does.
Of course.
Well, yeah.
So let's get on with the weird news. Imagine walking into a home and having 20,000 pairs of beady eyes focused on you. That's what it's like when you enter Janet McCain's house in Lincoln, Nebraska. The woman is raving over raccoons and has amassed a raccoon collection of over 10,000 different pieces to prove it. What started as a joke about her appearance, with a nod towards the tan line from her sunglasses, has turned into an all-out obsession that's taken over every inch of her home. The former Rubbermaid employee is a meticulous record keeper and has spreadsheets logging all her treasures. She keeps track of the item, its location, where she got it, and any other pertinent information. Even her shelves are numbered in some weird woodland version of the Dewey Decimal System. While she does hunt for some of her own, she receives a large portion of her raccoons from people who have only just heard about her, although her own daughter admits that her children are the biggest enablers to her obsession. In other raccoon news, raccoons attacked reporters on the north lawn of the White House at the beginning of the week, But I'm just kidding. Who cares about reporters of the news? They're all jerks.
You know, when you first started this story, you said beady eyes, right? As in little eyes.
Yeah.
I swear the first thing I was thinking was this woman had underwear hanging all over her walls. Just the beady eye, just ignore me. But it just was like, I was like, wait, where's she going with this?
Angie, where's that stick? You sharpened the stick this week, right?
I'm just confused. Beady
Me too. I don't know how 1 and 1 equals 2 on this one, but I don't know. Brian?
I'm from California. Just let me be.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. We're getting to the California story at the end. Okay.
I do have a question, though, on the raccoons. Were they alive or dead?
As far as I know, none of it is actually taxidermy. It's all just like raccoon memorabilia. Like,
memorabilia. Okay, so it's not like roadkill on the walls.
I guess I should have made that clear. I was hoping that no one actually thought that she could get 10,000 raccoons to sit still long enough to be cataloged.
It's 2020. Come on, Angie.
Man, you're telling me.
Yeah.
A 57-year-old Romanian man named, I think it's pronounced Jan, but maybe not, Aleman, won his third term as mayor of the town of Devezlu. There's no real news there except for the fact that he died 2 weeks prior to the election.
Well, that's about par for the course.
According to officials, since the mayor was alive when the ballots were printed, he was still eligible to be elected again despite his death. Several voters said they voted for him because he did a good job when he was alive. So they basically knowingly elected a dead man because he was a good mayor while alive.
Oh, so cabinet meetings are like Ouija board sessions to find out what he wants to do.
Right.
You know,
I feel so bad for the other candidate who said
I was going to
so
say,
bad.
If I was the other candidate, I would be embarrassed.
People wanted a corpse in office rather than him.
Yeah, I think I would probably crawl into a closet or somewhere if that was me.
Yes.
Wow.
So do you remember how people were freaking out that masked robbers were going to cause a chaotic mess if the government required all of us to wear facial coverings in public? Well,
yes.
We focused on the wrong thing, y'all. It's the furries we should have been worried about.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
In Louisiana, because of course it was, there was a chipmunk who robbed a pharmacy at gunpoint in Evangeline Terrace. He was described as 5'10" with brown eyes.
Oh my God!
The junkie chipmunk.
Can you imagine the person that went in there to get the sketch down? You got Chippendale on the sketch. Oh my God! I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The junkie chipmunky wanted nothing but narcotics, and he hightailed it to a nearby apartment complex afterwards.
Did you say junkie chipmunky?
I did.
Oh, okay. I thought I was hearing things. Okay, go ahead.
Look, it's been a really hard week. I've got to do something. Junkie chipmunky.
Were there any raccoons?
So an employee of the pharmacy said that he wasn't altogether a terrible rodent. Although the nut muncher stole her cell phone, he did give her back the SIM card when she begged for the photos of her grandchildren.
Oh
my Lord.
Oh my God.
Now,
at first I was thinking he might just be squirreling away all the photos, but he's
that's worse than Brian.
Angie, I am really starting to become proud of you. You're really embracing the pontification. It's just wonderful to see.
You rubbed off on me like poison ivy.
No, I love it.
Not you.
Pete, we're ganging up on you, Pete. Now, here's something you guys might find a little interesting.
At 2, Angie?
Yeah, at 2 Angie. So I have a friend of mine.
Here we go.
I'm not going to say his name. The
Angie, get
guy,
the stick.
the guy is literally brilliant. All right, and I mean genius level. And we all know that genius and being insane go hand in hand. Well, anyway, this guy, he's actually a paranormal investigator, but he's also a furry. Okay. And
I'm going to interrupt you. I am going to interrupt you real quick and just say that, all furry jokes aside, I know that there is like a really serious community of these people.
Oh, yeah, no, this is not a joke.
They are not like, criminals or anything like that.
Oh,
I'm poking fun at people who are different from me because I have low self-esteem. So be nice to me. Okay.
We will do our best. Anyway, this guy is also a paranormal investigator.
There's our demographic.
And I kid you not, he has ghost hunting equipment. He's a dragon, and he has ghost hunting equipment installed in his tail. He's got little lights that will flash along his tail. He has got equipment and meters in his dragon mask, and he will actually go ghost hunting as a furry. And the first time we found this out, we were just looking at him like, are you kidding me? But it actually seems to work for him. And we all just, it's just mind-boggling how he can walk around in these locations with a tail that gets stuck on things, that has equipment in it. It's just really bizarre. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
That is bizarre.
Yeah.
But we here at the Full Spectrum Project appreciate all types of people.
Absolutely.
So
I need a scotch.
Just one?
Just wait. You're going to need two in a second. Hold on.
Okay.
And let me make this abundantly clear. This is not a political statement or anything other than me saying that I believe this is a lack of common sense. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I guess. So in Orange County, California, 2 sheriff's deputies got a laughable version of 1 year's probation after they took a plea deal. They'd gotten caught lying on police reports by saying they'd booked in evidence that was never submitted at all. They claimed they didn't know it was illegal, and officials believed them despite the numerous trainings, checks and balances, and policies in place to prevent such a thing from happening. An additional sheriff's deputy refused to take the plea deal and was indicted on a felony charge. Y'all, the sheriff's deputies stated they didn't know it was illegal to lie on a police report.
What? I have to say that does kind of sound like California. It's just...
I mean, it kind of sounds like, okay, so in all honesty, what it sounds like to me is a group of officers who came into like the boys club, and even though it was known that it's not appropriate procedure, they were kind of led to believe that it was still kind of okay and didn't really see any harm in it. And I mean, I'm speculating because I really don't know what they were thinking, but it just kind of seems to me that, I don't know. I don't know what the guy who didn't take the deal was thinking personally. Like,
I don't think he was thinking.
No.
I don't know, but I can't with this stuff anymore. I mean, that's like me saying that, even with all the training that I'd gotten as a teacher and all the, training the state came in and did with us and all the training that I got in teacher school, that I didn't know I couldn't help a kid on a state assessment. It's just,
you can't?
Well, okay. It isn't like that because that's not as serious in my opinion as a police officer not booking in evidence, but and okay. So on that note, that is all I've got for y'all today. I would like to thank all of y'all for listening to the Full Spectrum Project Weird World News on WBHM-DB, Birmingham, Alabama. And with that, let's get back to Brian and Pete.
Thank you, Angie. But you've actually made it so California seems even worse than it actually is. No, it actually is that bad.
I can't do that. Y'all's people and y'all's politicians are doing that well enough without my help.
Don't remind me. Anyway, thank you, Angie. It was fun and informative as usual. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you all.
All right, so we are back with the Full Spectrum Project at Oh, we do. Well, why don't you patch us through?
Well, hello, caller. Welcome to the Full Spectrum Project.
Well, hey there. How are you guys?
We're doing good. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. I'm excited I got through. I think I accidentally hung up on myself a couple times, but I went through.
We do that about it.
Yeah, we do that to ourselves all the time.
All right, glad to know I'm not alone.
Unfortunately, Brian keeps calling me back.
Oh, good.
No. It's Wyatt. Wyatt is the one that handles the phone.
Okay.
So anyway, do you have a question for our guest?
Yeah, I do. I was really curious because I know that Teal Gray has a lot of projects underway, and I was just curious. I know that so it's like so many, and I try to keep track of them, but maybe this is going to be out of the blue, and I'm sorry if I'm catching you off guard, but one of the projects I remember you talking about at some point was like about haunted barns, or am I remembering that wrong? And I'm sorry if I'm wrong, just call me out.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's a book that's a global, that's, like a worldwide book. So there's so many haunted barns. And I love barns, except I started thinking, why are there so many barns that are haunted? And people who don't even think, I don't believe in that. But then they'll call and they'll say, hey, the horses are acting crazy. We've got a lot of money tied up in this place. And what's going on? And you'll find out through the history, there were people murdered in that barn. There were people that hung themselves in a barn. There's people that were raped and all sorts of things happen in barns. And so it's just kind of, me, the mind starts ticking, or what's left of it.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, is this everywhere? Is this just certain things? I'm a native Texan. Things happen in Texas, we don't ask a lot of questions, but it's not. Yeah. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Every state, every country, they all have, like, when you bring it up to some people, like, hey, anything about barns? Oh, and they're like, even if they've been like, I'm not into the ghost thing. You bring up barns, and they're like, okay, if you're talking about that, well, sure. It's a whole nother level of it. And I started thinking, well, okay, what is it about a barn that is, so haunted versus, like, let's say on a farm, everything else may be fine. The house may be fine. Everything that you would expect to be a problem, not a problem. But that barn, nobody wants to go in it, right?
It reminds me of, I just was going to say real quick, it reminds me of, like, okay, when you watch a movie and as soon as they go into a parking garage, something's going to go down. I mean, no one ever proposes to someone in a parking garage. And, like, barns are kind of like parking garages. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah, it's going to go south for sure. And, I think the thing is that throughout time, no matter where you are, I mean, barns are a place where, secret things can happen. Lives are created by rolling around in the hay. They're also killed out there, right? So, I mean, you have the whole spectrum of people making love in barns. You have people who get, caught off guard and raped in barns. You have people that are murdered in barns. You have people that have been born in barns. I'm not talking about Jesus necessarily, just saying. But,
and you have a lot of accidental deaths in barns as well.
My mom said
that's the thing. There's so much equipment, and I started thinking, okay, now what is the deal? Because I think certain things attach to different conduits, and there's a lot of metal in barns. There's a lot of electricity that gets zapped on, the weather vanes going through a barn. There's just a lot of things that barns have been around a long time. Some of them are quite old, but the equipment, you're absolutely right. The equipment in there's so many there's knives, there's things that go on to the tractors for cutting, baling hay. There's just a lot that goes on. So you can, and actually just even the hay lofts, these are some of them quite big, and a lot can go wrong there. So you do have a lot of accidents, a lot of accidental deaths, things that happen. And then you've got to add the layer in of all the animals and all the things about that. And so I think that, I asked one person to kind of do an experiment for me that was having trouble, and they had very expensive horses, and they're like, we will try whatever, lay it on us. Let's do this. And so I said, let's take everything out. Let's take everything out, everything that's sharp, everything, because a lot of the stuff they didn't use, it's just been there forever, right? And they took everything out, and we just kind of cleared it out, and we opened up, some of the windows that have been so closed, and we just let this stale energy that had gotten trapped, and it gets trapped in corners. I understand that for some people, they're like, oh God, is she going to go off on that feng shui stuff again? I am, because it's a thing, and it has been for thousands of years. And energy gets trapped. And it's the same thing when you want to smudge or cleanse your house with, whether it's smudge sticks or my spray, something like that. I'm always like, oh, for God's sake, open the doors, open the windows, because otherwise you're chasing this energy around, and it's just getting angry, and you're going to have a worse situation. But energy, it gets stale, it gets trapped. And so when we did this, and we cleared it out, and we sort of gave it, freshening, and we did not put in the sharp objects again. We didn't put anything in there that didn't have to be in there, and the stuff that we did, we had washed it, we had put it in the sun, we had, all these different things, and put crystals in. I know it sounds a little woo-woo, but like we were really cleansing it every way possible, and they had no more trouble. And this had been classically, for decades, haunted. So do I think it's possible to clear it out?
And
yes.
Is it a farm?
Do I think yeah, it's at a barn. And, could you clear them all out? Probably not, because I think some of them have entities and things. Each one's its own story, just like if you said haunted houses. It's a generic term, and yet each one is a case study, and it's going to be different. But yes, that barn book, I'm really, really hoping I can get the barn book. If I can't get it out for Christmas, then it'll be right around the first of the year, because that's a kind of a fun book in the sense of it's just a little different because it's barns, but there's some really interesting stories, and some of them pretty scary.
But you've
and
got
when you go back and
so you've got barns around the world. I think of barns.
Yeah, when I go, I'm not one of those girls who, when they say, oh, what do you want to do? You want to go to the mall and go shoe shopping? I'm like, no, could we go to Tractor Supply and see the new chicks and the bunnies, or could we go to the farm store?
Well, what's funny is I don't think I would, especially as a writer myself, I don't think I would ever have thought about writing about barns. Anyway, we need to take a station identification break. I'd like to thank our caller for calling in with a great question. And we will see you on the other side of the break.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
We are back with the Full Spectrum Project at WBHM-DB. If you would like to join the chat room, go to www.wbhmdb.com. And if you have a question for our guest, the number is area code 205-533-7982. And I don't know, do you guys remember at the beginning of the show I was talking about I finally get to retire. After 35 years of manual labor, I get to write for a living. Now, I've actually been off work for about the past 7 months, so in effect, I have been retired. And the one thing that scares me is I get a little bored every once in a while. And this actually has my wife a little miffed and upset because I do some weird stuff when I get bored. So I was a little bored yesterday and thought I'd do something that, would kind of liven things up. And so I grabbed one of our colanders and started using it as a microphone, which wasn't a great idea because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do the show today because I strained my voice.
Oh, Lord.
I waited for that.
Yes, you waited for that, Pete.
Teal, I humbly apologize. He's been on a tear here recently. I apologize to our listeners.
Okay.
You know, Brian.
But it happened. Okay, maybe not.
So silence for the brain cells you just lost listening to that.
So, Teal, I wanted to ask you. You have a book, Shades of Angels, and that came out a few years ago, and 2016, and your newest book is The Devil Made Me Do It. And I was just wondering, is that sort of a offshoot of Shades of Angels, and it kind of like as a yin and yang type of thing?
Well, Shades of Angels, it does talk about both in that. So I've got the Shades of Angels, Spirited Tales, Scared Senseless, Reading the Unwritten, Forget Me Not, Memento Mori, and then The Devil Made Me Do It. It is really what made it. I do certainly talk about dark spirits and dark angels and their hierarchy, and just to kind of let people know, because you have to not assume everybody knows everything about all that. But it fascinated me how some of these tales of people throughout history where, of course, some of them I dismiss immediately because, Eve tried to get away with saying the devil made me do it, Genesis 3:13. She didn't get off the hook. She got kicked out. So, I mean, a lot of these people come up to the judge and they say, the devil made me do it. And he's like, well, life in prison. So, it's, and it's because he didn't. However, it's this 1% of all of these kind of things that interest me in any, situation, anything on topic. But there's 1% of things that even children, even, animals, there are just certain things that seem to have been possessed. And so I certainly talk about how, most of the time, and I give you some scriptures because some people like to know, well, is it even spoken about in the Bible? Is this happening? Is that happening? And you will get the answers to that. Yes, it is. It's in there, but it's also, I have to say, one time that it's a little bit like you need to have both sides of the tale because there are possessions, demonic possession, that happens, but most of the time you will have where it is a split in the mind, there's a personality thing, and you have to think of like the devil doesn't always make you do it, but he will persuade you. He might put the knife, he didn't make you stab them. You did because you have free will, but he can work on your negative traits. He can work on, your anger issues. He can work on your jealousy, your insecurity, and he can make you go, he can maybe influence you. And then also there's people who just acted out, a crime of passion or something, and they did it, and then they want to not go to prison, and so they pull this, I'm insane, or the devil made me do it. However, there is a percentage of people that, it's crazy, and some of them are stories from people who I don't name because of their job, but some of them are police officers that have, or detectives who have had situations where they had somebody in custody and they said literally their voices, their eyes changed. And this is like a once in a lifetime situation. This is not people just rolling through the county jails possessed. That's not a thing. That's drugs and alcohol and crazy people. Right. Over and under medicated. 99% of the time. But there have been those stories where they couldn't explain it, and it really shook them because they realized there was something else there. There was some other situation there. And, while I have been wrong and had to eat crow about saying, this is rubbish, people say this or that, or please, they say, I just saw this, the devil made me do this, the devil made me do that. Well, be careful what you say, because then I had an interaction which somebody could say, well, Teal's crazy. You could say that, but it was so real. I wasn't asleep. This has been in I think this is in Shades of Angels, in fact. It's called Look Again. It's a story in there called Look Again. And I was looking outside. We'd had a particularly bad winter, a few years back. And I thought, God, man, all my fruit trees, all this stuff, because I have 2 houses on 3 acres, so I had some land up there. And I was thinking, darn it, it's been so long. I don't know if this stuff's going to work out for this freeze. And before I had a chance to recognize what was happening, pray, ask for help, anything, I'm telling you, not even a split second, there was this really, sounds like a bad B movie, but like this deep chill in the room. And I know it was winter, but this was an additional chill that went right beside me. And this really deep, throaty voice was right in my ear, very raspy. And it was like, look again, I'm going to tell you what could happen and what we do to people all the time, and you don't believe it, and I'm not going to hurt you, I'm not going to do anything to you, but I'm going to teach you a lesson, and you're going to remember it. I'm going to let you remember it. And so it was like, what the heck? But again, could not help myself, could not move, could not do anything, and it was a very dark entity. I hate to throw around the title demon because it gets thrown around so much, and there's so many different levels. It could have just been a very dark spirit, but it was that. Certainly was not any entity that I had been with before. It was dark, and it was a lower level. And I immediately was like, look again. And I looked outside, and I didn't remember anything that was happening. I didn't remember that there was something talking to me. Nothing. I was as nothing could be remembered except bing. Oh my God, look, it's a huge harvest. I was only in the panic of how many baskets could I get? Who do I have? I got to call everybody on my friend list. Everybody's got to come help with this harvest. So these pears and apples, everything doesn't ruin. And I was just in this happy, euphoric, like I've never had a crop like this. This is going to be so great. And then boom comes the voice again. And it's this deep, raspy voice. And it says, hey, you see, this is exactly what I'm telling you. We can get in their mind. We can make these changes, and they don't know. Like, we have total control. And then it was just gone, But I then was like, oh, well, that's a thing, And I also had another instance where I didn't believe the stories where people said they heard like growling, and then there was
If I could just ask a question on the story you were just saying, you had mentioned free will, and
yes.
That's at least for me, that's the greatest gift that God gave us was free will. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering if you were saying that you didn't have any control, you couldn't move, and you really didn't have any control over what was going on. How powerful of an entity can it be to be able to enter into you and be able to take away your free will?
Well, I think here's another thing that people don't like to get into, but it's a fact. You can get into the Bible and research it. It's a true thing. God, can give permission for you to be tested. He can give permission, and it didn't hurt me. And so he could have said, we will, we're going to show her this. And I do think, and this is not something a lot of ministers think, I do think that God, the good side, the bad side, I think that they battle for our souls, yes. But I do think there's times when permission is given, just like in Job, go ahead, test him. Don't kill him, but test him. And all sorts of things happened to Job. So I
poor
think
Job.
That you can, but God gave permission if he didn't just, he couldn't kill him,
I know,
but he could do all
I know.
things. So, and so I think that there's times when that was for the betterment of me and me dealing with people and clients who come to me with this, where I was dismissing them as like, come on, it's crazy. Then it taught me, okay, so I'll sit down, I'll listen, and the same thing with the growling and the boulders on the roof. That happened to me in one day. And I went out the front door thinking that what is going on? It's like an airplane or something, collapsing on the roof. And it was so loud. And I never saw the demon or the dark entity, but it was so close in my face, I could feel the breath when it was growling. And I don't see them. I know some people see them, so I've been blessed this far. I don't see them, but I've had a couple come calling. And I would go out the front door, nothing. Beautiful, sunny day, middle of the afternoon, no problem whatsoever. Go back in the house, sounded like the roof was going to come in. And so that was another lesson. I wasn't hurt, but they got my attention, and they taught me a lesson. So I do think, that there is that. And, of course, there's plenty of biblical text about where, yes, there are possessions. Some people will say, no, that if you're a believer, it can't happen. And you know what? Again, just where you can't prove something is haunted, or you're talking to Aunt Tilly versus a dark spirit or even a light spirit. You can't, I don't think that you can prove these cases where they say these people were possessed because they weren't believers, because some of the people were strong believers throughout history who have been possessed. And I'm not talking about biblical. I'm just talking about, in the last 100 years. Let's even pick that.
Well,
But
even
there's
if you're
actual
talking to
demon possessions in
even
there.
if you're talking to one that has given you names, dates, places, and events, that's still in the Akashic records, and you still don't know who's given it to you. You know that the information you can research, but you still don't know if it's intel.
That's right, and that's what I tell people. Like, you have to understand that, and especially sometimes if they are wanting to lure you into something or have more control over you, they will give you a lot of information, and then you feel powerful. And even if you find out, like, oh, this is maybe not good for me, or this place is getting more haunted, or this doesn't feel right, you want the information so bad. Some of them do. I know. I'd be like, you know what, bye. But some people will really get clued into that, and they'll get taken into that, and their possessions I do believe that they do happen. And even it says, the one thing you have to think of is there's so many levels, just like there's levels of good angels. There's the same on the dark side. There's Satan, and underneath that, rulers, authorities, powers, spiritual forces. Then you just get down to, really low level energy. And that's why so many people, when they're trying to teach you the power of attraction, that you have to raise your energy to get away from negativity, and you have to raise it again. You have to raise it again. You have to do it all the time.
Because it's so easy to create negative energy. It's real hard to create positive energy.
Exactly, but I think, that's just my personal opinion, I think that negative travels faster because in the fall, and I do think there was a fall, that they fell. Where do they fall? They fell to Earth. Where did they give them dominion over? Earth. So they're here operating, and then you've got the good, which is also roaming around, but also coming from a higher vibration by far than us. And so it has to work its way and sometimes battle to us. And that is, some people will be like, well, that's a bad opinion. Well, let me tell you something. It's in the Bible. Daniel says, I prayed, and what took you so long? And the angel tells him, the good angel says, it took me 3 weeks because I had to battle to get to you. I had to I had to fight to get here to help you. So if you want to keep it all biblical, we can do that. But if you want to go, like you said, Akashic records, ancient stuff, there's so many things written about it. And that's what made me fascinated, to go kind of, yes, it's going to have a worldview and it's going to have a religious aspect, but it's also just a lot of stories that are just creepy where, people were around somebody. And I have had the experience one time where, and I didn't forget that, I was around somebody who I knew to be genuinely sweet and kind. And they were visiting at the time that the last Pope was, it was on TV and everything. And they said, can we change the channel? And they were getting agitated. I was like, well, I mean, there's, 2 houses and many TVs and rooms. And do you mind? I really want to see the Pope. And they got so upset. But I tell you, I understand that this sounds crazy, but during that time, the visit, I had fish tank that I'd had for over 3 years, no problem, no new fish, no new nothing. And all the fish the next day from the time that the person spent the night, all floating at the top of the tank, all dead. The flowers were wilting. The fruit was coming bad. And I think, and I had somebody else here with me, and when that person, knocked on the door, it was just like, to begin with, it was like, you felt like something else was with them. And when, they were getting upset, their voice was different and they just seemed different. And I don't think they were possessed, but I think there was certainly an attachment with them, on them, and it was affecting them and also affecting the stuff that typically people have those stories of,
Do you think
Pete,
yes,
we need to take a break.
Fine.
I'm sorry.
Fine.
You're listening to the Full Spectrum Project, and we will see you on the other side of the break.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
And you are back with the Full Spectrum Project at WBHM-DB. If you'd like to join the chat room, go to www.wbhmdb.com. And if you would like to call with a question for our guest, the number is area code 205-533-7982. Now, Teal, I had a question. You had said that during the fall, that the angels fell to Earth. Now, with all of the different planets and possible life out there, do you think that the fallen angels fell strictly to Earth or to other places as well?
Oh, no, absolutely. They just fell to, if you will, any planet, any eternity, space, everything. They're everywhere because they are not trapped in some situation to where they have to breathe a certain air, they have to walk a certain place. They don't even have to have a form. They can just be.
Yeah, their energy.
They take form to us, for different reasons. But I was just dealing with, because we're talking about humans in the book and like their actions that they act out now here. And that's why I think here on Earth, and I'm glad you asked that question, because specifically here on Earth, I think that evil or dark deeds can move faster because that's why, because that's my explanation, because nobody really has a good explanation for why, negative things move faster and it seems like the good takes longer. And that's just my take on it. But certainly intergalactic, I think you would have to we have such an ego. We think that we are so intelligent, but if you think about it, we don't know that we're not, the lowest level magma running around, these worlds and this thing that we've created on Earth and our lives. We think, we're so superior. We don't know that. We don't even know
what conscience is, let alone anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're finding out, science is catching up with some of that to realize that, some of this where people think, it couldn't be that there's reincarnation. And then some of science is saying, well, maybe we don't agree with you that, it's a certain soul that's coming back recycled, but we do now agree and understand that there is something hardwired in that DNA in your blood, so to speak, from your ancestors that have gone on and in your ancestral times, that you just know things, and it's just something that comes naturally. So there's a lot of things where I said in the beginning that science and spirituality, everything is coming back together when it was never split and didn't need to be.
One of the things that I've often wondered about, you had mentioned reincarnation, and I'm kind of up in the air as far as reincarnation goes. And one of the things that I had always thought about is, okay, when we're a relatively young species for this planet, and we started off with just a few people, and we've grown. So if everything has a soul, where did all of these other souls come from? And my thought pattern always seems to go back to, okay, if there is one God, which I believe, and there are all of these planets out there, what is to say that as we're reincarnated, if there is reincarnation, that we weren't from, say, another planet and just moved over here when we were reincarnated?
Exactly. Good point. And actually, that's very insightful. I had, because I think we're short on time, so I'll be quick about it. But I had an interaction with an intergalactic being, which I didn't know. I was outside with the dogs and the back in the land between the two houses, and there's these big glass windows, glass doors, so I could see inside. It was, just dusky, and but the lights were on the house, and all of a sudden, it wasn't thrown, it wasn't aggressive, but a dog toy, a little clown dog toy, starts rolling gently and too slowly, like really high up at the ceiling level, all the way from the entry of the bedroom, which I was outside, looking in, the dogs were, and all the way, and then it kind of stopped and then fell onto the bed. But it wasn't thrown. Something was handling it and making it twirl, right? And I did not interact with it. Obviously, I knew it was an entity, but it wasn't a spirit that I had discerned before. It wasn't a human spirit. It wasn't an angel of light or dark. It wasn't any kind of elemental, which is a whole nother realm. There's many realms of things, but none of these entities or spirits had I ever interacted with that energy. I didn't know what it was, so I wasn't going to interact with it because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So when I didn't, I was like, whoa. I came back in the house. It didn't feel bad. It just felt like something was there. And so I contacted an expert because, this is not my thing. And they said, oh, well, you're an intergalactic traveler. So I was like, okay, that's news on me. And she's like, no, you laugh, but it's true. And she goes, don't you believe in astral projection, astral travel? And I said, yes, I do. She goes, well, okay. She's like, just expand your mind. You're being very, short-sighted on that, because as you astral travel, many people do in their sleep, whether they realize it or not or believe it or not. And she said, when you go out there, you're not necessarily just going to what you understand as the moon or the, some star or something. She's like, people travel to different galaxies, different, spaces that we have not seen or understand in our mind. Okay. And I said, okay. And she goes, as you travel, you have a residue and you leave that. So like little markers of where you've traveled to. And she said, this was just an intergalactic entity. It was not harmful. And she said it just had met you on your travels. It was traveling through your time and space, and it just wanted to interact with you. And when you did not engage it, it realized, oh, for whatever reason, you didn't want to continue that conversation. And so it left, and to this point has never returned. So I'm always up for learning. I'm people may consider me an expert on certain things, but I don't care what you're an expert in. You've always got something to learn, because it's a vast, ever-opening, ever-changing world. But I think you're spot on. Why could it not? Of course it could. I don't know. I used to believe very much, very emphatically in reincarnation, and then I almost sort of educated myself out of that, and now I'm back to like, I don't know. I'm kind of like you. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. There's some things that you can't explain, how people know these things or can do these things, prodigies, but I don't know. But that was something that maybe could explain it.
Are you familiar with? Go ahead.
Well, wait a second, Brian. When we're talking about heaven and hell and dark and light, I think we were talking offline. I was going to bring up alternate realities. Do you think that we're that these dark entities, light entities, angels, demons, whatever. You think they're coming through on the different alternate realities that we have, of the different Earths?
Yes. And it, if you get into quantum physics and you get into string theory and all these different realities and vibrations, and time and space operating differently, there really is no time the way we want to mark it like time. So as you study that, and I would tell people, really, I know some people are like, I don't want to tackle quantum physics. You really do, because while it's stranger than you can think, it will open your mind and blow it at the same time, but you will understand how these are really possible. And I think that it's how sometimes what people think of residual hauntings come about a certain time. It's like something gets stuck on a loop. So certainly, yes, I'm very open to all that. I believe in all that.
Because you had mentioned, that they had, I guess it was in one of the Bible passages, that they had to fight their way to come through, and that's the only way that I can figure is fighting through energy to come to a different energy. I don't know. That's just what I'm thinking.
Exactly. No, and it's true. And then, there's another, I know we're throwing it out here really quick, but there's another that says, even in an exorcism, look at Matthew 12:45. It says if it's not done properly, then the spirit you're getting out goes out and comes back with sevenfold more. They call it a sevenfold infestation. And they go out and they come back with seven that are even more wicked than themselves, and you have a worse problem. Okay, well, where the heck are they going, to 7-Eleven? I mean, they're going out into alternative energies, realities, and bringing them in from where? Who knows? Wherever they are. Like, it's endless in the possibilities, and I think that everybody just has to open their mind and think about it, not so much just as a Bible, but as part of what you use as a resource. Look at ancient texts, look at different religions, and open your mind and realize that many of these things have the same story. They have different verbiage and they have different names, but it's the same story.
One of the things that's kind of, scary about what you just said, about how the Bible says if you don't do an exorcism right, that the entity comes back sevenfold. With the amount of people out there right now who think, and I'm using think loosely.
Air quotes.
Right, that they know what they're doing. I see on social media so many times, we're going to battle a demon tonight.
Yeah.
And people are
like they're ordering pizza.
Yeah, like they're ordering pizza, and then people say, "Oh, have fun," and I'm thinking to myself, "Are you even sane?" It kind of makes you wonder just how many have they run into that they've done wrong that just made it worse.
I think that's how you run into Legion, actually.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing, and that gives me the chill when you said that, because they will say, I am Legion many times, and the truth is they are. And you don't have to believe in them, but they believe in you. And that's a fact. You don't have to believe in God, but they do, because they got to know the rules of the battle. I mean, there are rules, and they know it.
What was the saying? Something about the greatest success the devil had was to prove he wasn't real? Something along those lines. Yeah.
Because then you think, oh no, he's not real, and it's the great deceiver, right? And he also was beautiful. He was the most beautiful of all the angels. He was the smartest, the most talented. That's why he ended up challenging God. Like, hey, I am just as good as you. And
it was all ego.
It was his ego that took over, and because we are part of that, we have that ego, and that's what we have to fight in ourselves. And if you think about many things that hold you back in life or have challenged whatever, if you go back to it, it's ego-based. You're not really having the experiences you think you are. It's getting based on fear. It's getting based on, people lash out. But it's not just always anger. It's because they're afraid. It's because they feel insignificant. It's to feel, there's always something that goes down to these base emotions. And that's part of it. So, it really is something that I find. I think that, I don't know why, a few years back, everything was great. People were finding out more about, spirits and ghosts and hauntings, and all of a sudden that wasn't enough. They had to amp it up. Like everything now needs to be chasing a demon or something. There's a lot of dark entities, but there's not as many demons as they.
Well, unfortunately,
but they're not coming in contact with them.
unfortunately, I think that the whole, and I'm going to, demon craze, I know that sounds funny to say it like that. I believe that is coming from one particular television show. And I mean, it drives me up a wall that people actually
he who shall be unnamed.
He who shall be unnamed.
But let's say, though, honestly, the he who shall not be named, he has been damaged from the interaction with at least one.
Yeah.
Very seriously. So
my
that
partner
can go south on you.
My partner is actually personal friends with him, or at least was before this person changed. And my partner is now 100% positive that he has been possessed. Anyway, unfortunately, we are out of time. I would, if you would agree to it, I would love to have you back sometime, and I'm pretty sure Pete would too.
Sure.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah, because you know what, we really didn't get to a lot of the questions that we were going to ask. That was, and believe it or not, that's not a complaint. That's like, oh, that was cool. Anyway,
I'm glad.
Teal, thank you so much. That was I found that absolutely fascinating. So thank you so much for joining us. It was absolutely great. Thank you.
Thank you, Teal.
You're welcome. I'd love to come back anytime. You're very welcome. You're a great host. I have great fun, and anytime. It's such a big, vast subject. It's hard to get it all in,
Oh, I hear that. All right. So next week, we will be joined by Jason Offit, and he's going to be discussing all of the various monsters in all 50 states.
Yes.
So this one should be pretty interesting, because I'm kind of curious about some of the monsters and whether they're actual cryptids.
Yeah,
or
we got a rockin'
folklore.
October coming up. October coming up.
Absolutely. All right.
Yes.
So until next week, everybody be safe, be healthy, and thank you for joining us.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.